welcome.
Huh? Pardon me?
Thank you all for coming out this afternoon. Happy to be providing our second town hall meeting in basically what's close to a year of me being here. So I think about this time last year, I was probably looking around trying to find a place to live in Lexington, which was pretty tough, but we managed to do that. So wanted to provide some updates this morning and certainly allow some time for some questions. So we'll just jump right in here. Today's agenda, we're going to review a little bit about where we are in the strategic planning process, a little bit of an update on the apartment building air conditioning and cooling project. Going to share some information about staffing and human resources. So there is a lot of talk about our staff, what's going on, what our turnover rates are, and those sorts of things. So we're going to get into that a little bit. I'm going to share a slide of the Kendall Corporation rebranding effort and then give some other project updates. So without further ado, so strategic planning right now, we're in the middle of some stakeholder conversations. So the plan is being developed. We're reaching out to staff, residents, and community members to get feedback on what that plan looks like right now. And we're still working towards an anticipated approval of the plan in July's board meeting. So for those of you who had the opportunity to participate in some of the stakeholder meetings, we really appreciate that. There were several really strong, robust conversations with staff and residents. And thank you all for that time. It'll be valuable as we start to complete that plan. So, related to the apartment building heating and cooling project, just some background. I shared this last time we got together, but the project was set up. Basically, we started working on this in November of 25. We completed a survey in December and began documenting the existing conditions of the building in January of 26. So through January and February, the engineer worked on some concepts, some options for us to consider. We reviewed those concepts in February, and now into April, we're entering into the actual design phase. So we'll be working on designing the solution to the air conditioning and heating problem in the building in April. By the end of the week, I should have an updated project timeline. I don't have it right now. But in the next couple of months, what you can expect is the engineers will be working on the design, and we'll also more than likely have to have some additional survey work done to complete that design. So we're made some progress here. I think many of you might have seen in the Advocate a statement related to Kendall having filed a complaint against Johnson Controls. So just a little bit about that. When we looked in what our recourse might be for the people who installed the current system, what we found out is there were some statute of limitation issues based on the agreement we signed, and it was coming close to being due. So we had the opportunity to file a complaint. I'm sure I'm talking to lawyers who know more about this than I do, so feel free if I get it wrong to correct me later, but we had the opportunity to file the complaint, which bought us a window of time that we could drop it and then refile it again with more details. So really what you're seeing in there is a placeholder in the event we do decide to pursue litigation against the people who installed the existing system. So hopefully that gives some clarity to what that was. And there's some other mitigating, I think right now, the way that the agreement says if we would go to a mediation or an arbitration type arrangement with them, we would have to do that in Wisconsin. If we would go to court, it would be in Virginia. So it's very, kind of the language in it was confusing, so we said, let's just file this so we have the opportunity, if we want to, as we investigate it further. If not, we can drop it. So we're not sure what we're doing yet, but we have made sure we have the opportunity to pursue that. A little bit about staffing. So we talk a lot about staff turnover, okay? And what we see here, in 2023, we had about a 43%, 44% staff turnover. 24 was 50, and last year it was 47, almost 48%. So those are pretty high numbers. When we looked at, but consistently high. So I think I've talked to people who have been here for a long time. I think this has been a thing for Kendall, that we had a lot of staff turnover. I'll show you how it looks by department in a minute, but the average, based on looking at healthcare organizations similar size, based on SHRM data, is roughly between 23 and 26%. So you can see we're on the high side here, pretty high. But when we look at it I looked at the top 3 departments, right? So let me see if I can get this to work. So culinary, housekeeping, and health services. And these are their head counts, right? This is the number of staff per department. So the full allotment of staff in culinary is 34, housekeeping's 15, and then health services is 62. And these are the number of terminations, whether they're voluntary or involuntary. So the difference between what I'm calling voluntary resignations and terminations are the people that had a policy violation, didn't show up to work, people we basically fired. When you look over here at voluntary resignations, these are people who left the organization probably in good standing, right? So as, and just a little bit of little asterisks here, 8 of these 28 people were per diem folks that didn't pick up shifts. So they were just taken off our books. So really when you look at the totality in health services, it's more, realistically it's more like in the 20s. Not high 20s, but the lower 20s. So these are the people that just left though. So to me, where we have the opportunity to correct the ship are with these folks, right? So those are the people that we can work on our staff culture. We can make sure that we're providing good, why are they leaving, right? It could be staff culture, it could be compensation, it could be that their family moved. Like those things you can't help, right? Someone may have got a better job, better opportunity, or got career advancement, those types of things. But really, the people that we had to terminate because they were breaking policy, breaking rules, these types of things. So, so hopefully that gives a little context. So this was actually reassuring a little bit to me. If you look at it, 28 to 22, they're closer to the national average in the health services department than some of our operating departments. Housekeeping in particular, it's a little deceiving. I think they had one position that turned over 4 times since I've been here, which is the floor care technician. So that number gets padded a little bit. You don't really see, you can't really, many of you are probably saying, I have had the same housekeeper for 5 years, right? We have some long-term employees there, but we have some positions that have turned over multiple times, if that makes sense. So what are we gonna do here about it? So the first thing we're looking at is we haven't done a staff satisfaction or staff engagement survey since 2024. We do have a system that we have and we've been paying for. It's called Tiny Pulse. The last one, like I said, was completed in 2024. And at that time, the overall staff satisfaction was a 4.61 out of 5. That's not too bad. But what we're looking at here is a participation rate of 35%. So with that, they say they can benchmark us against like organizations at 40%. And that would be a great first goal. I still think that's going to show engaged people participating in a survey because they're engaged people, and it's going to skew our information a little bit. So we really want to drive this number as close to 75-80% of our staff as we can. So the good news is, I think Tuesday we'll be putting out a survey. Our goal is to do it here in the spring and then repeat it in the fall. And we'll be working to try and make sure that we get high levels of participation on that. When we get that information, I'll be sharing it. We'll see where we are. So the next thing is really kind of a recruitment thing. So one of the things we'll be doing here in May is we'll be having a job fair, or I keep saying job fair, I'm told it's supposed to be career fair because that's much more inviting. Career fair here on May 7th from 11 to 2. We're doing some different things. You're going to see this on social media, you're going to see it in print ads, those sorts of things. It's going to be advertised. We are going to have a food truck here. We're going to have something called the scrub bus, if you're not familiar with that. You know, the nursing scrubs that they wear. There's a traveling store that comes in. They're going to park out here in front of the building. We'll have a taco truck out there in front of the building. We'll be doing same-day interviews and same-day offers for people. And you know, we have a goal of a certain amount of positions that we feel like we want to try and fill there. So it's focusing not only on the health care side of things, but also operations and dining services and that sort of thing. So we're looking out there to try and see if we can do some things a little bit different to drum up interest in working here. Some of the positions we're really focused on, these are some of the key positions that are currently opened. Well, not Warren's position. Warren is here, but so welcome. Welcome to Warren. If you haven't met him yet, he's right there behind us. So, obviously Todd, I think many of you know Todd's retiring. We had some interviews last week for his position, and they really weren't the caliber of candidate we had hoped to get. So we're putting the net back out there. Those are big shoes to fill. Let's just say. And then, you know, we have a landscape manager position that's vacant, and also, you know, the culinary front of house position is vacant as well. So these are some of the more, let's just say, they're key pieces to our puzzle that we need to recruit in. So that's it on staffing. This, if you haven't seen it yet, is TKC's new brand image. So. There is another presentation, I believe, on Friday. If you had at 4 o'clock on Friday, I just got help. So that and if you know, it's a Zoom link. If you want to see more details about this, it's available to you. You know, there's a couple elements to it that I can try to explain. So the Kendall, obviously, the font is a little bit different. The color they say is green, although I think when it's often on a white screen, it looks black to me. And then there's this little piece out here, like, you know, they're calling that a trillium. And I think they've got some pushback on that because it doesn't really look like the flower, from what I understand. We got told that. But really, that's it's a logo, and it has a purpose, right? So the previous one you would see on social media, they call it a bug. It's just a little piece, a little thing that you would see in an ad. And you want that co-branded with your main logo, and you use it in social media. But ours is a K right now. So if you're trying to co-brand that, you get Kendall, right? So they wanted to have something more of an image, and they went with this, and it, you know, the three pieces are supposed to represent, you know, the residents, the staff, and the boards. So, you know, that's kind of marketing stuff. And they did add some color to it. They call it raspberry. I don't know. It's red. But anyway, this is what it is. And again, I invite you to participate in a Zoom call if you'd like to learn more about this. And just understand, like, this isn't a drop dead kind of thing. The first place you're going to see these changes will be in social media and on our website. But if we have stationery and business cards and monument signs and all this kind of stuff, we're not all tearing it down and doing new stuff just for fun. So this will be a softer transition. It won't be an immediate thing. We're not going to waste resources on trying to get to this all at once. A little bit of, like, I thought this was very positive news from dining, and I think Jen shared it at the RA meeting last week or 2 weeks ago. So expanded hours on the grill. So the grill will start to be open on Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sunday for lunch and dinner. Dinner from 4:30 to 6 on Sunday, and that will start May 16th. And then she's working on the cafe opening as well, which is that little seating area outside the restaurant, you know, for some Monday through Sunday breakfast. And that'll begin on May 18th. So I think that's a very, very positive things, and I think she'll have more to report about on that. Other projects we're working on, so you probably heard people walking around talking about PCC, or Point Click Care. What is that exactly? That is our electronic medical records program that we use in the health center. So we're in the process of transitioning from the current program to PCC. This is a big lift for the folks, particularly Adam and his team in Wayne, and it has some impact into finance. It's a big thing. It's going system-wide. All the Kendalls are changing to this program. It's it's a well-respected program. It's commonly used in senior living organizations, but it is big work, and the transition will be taking place in June. So they're already working on developing the plan and training and all these kinds of things, getting ready to do it. We're also, two kind of other things that are in the IT department's court is we will be updating our phone system. And SharePoint will be a location where all of the data that are files, let's just say not data, but files that people keep will be migrating to a different program, kind of like a cloud-based program rather than a server-based program. It's a big deal too. You think about all the different files and sub-files that everybody has on their computer that's stored on a server. These will all be going up into the SharePoint system, and you know, the goal here is not to transfer garbage to garbage, right? So people are going through and trying to clean out files and making sure that it's organized the right way. Those are some of the other kind of initiatives that are going on that are taking some time and effort. Lastly, just a little update on our fellowship fund. So you can see the difference between the 2 years there. So you know, the donors, number of donors and the number of gifts didn't move that much, but the overall total is a little bit lower than it was in 2025. So there's more detail, and some people give 2 gifts. That's why it looks a little funny, but yeah. So that's what I have today. I'm happy to take any questions. I'm sure there aren't any. Is that what?
If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you. Come on, Harden.
What period of time is represented by the termination slide you showed?
That's 1 year. Thank you. Did everyone hear the question? It was what period of time was represented by the kind of gray slide that I showed that showed the termination? That was last year. That was the 47.6%. Right behind
you. This week there was another sewage overflow in the south ground floor apartments. And this suggests 2 things. One, that some residents aren't being careful in terms of what they put down toilets, in terms of cat litter and so on. And secondly, it suggests that Kendall's approach to preventive maintenance is not working, at least when it comes to sewer lines. The oral history of Kendall is that when this first occurred a number of years ago, that Roto-Rooter was given a contract to come in and do preventive maintenance. However, that contract was terminated, probably because there weren't any problems and it cost money. So my question is, can we have an outside group with expertise in sewage and keeping sewer lines open with a preventive maintenance contract?
the short answer is yes. I think I would need to talk with Todd a little bit and get some more details on that, but it's commonly done.
I will offer that yesterday I did have sewage back in the bathroom. Yeah, thank you. I did have,
Up to your face.
sewage back up in my
You
bathroom.
have to put it right up at your mouth.
Okay, is
There you
that
go.
better?
Yes.
Okay. I did yesterday have sewage back up in my bathroom, and going into my bedroom, I was grateful that I did not have carpet in the bedroom. But, anyway, it was a distress, and it was a big mess. And, I hope it won't happen again. It evidently happened while we've only been here 6 months. And when our unit was being renovated, there was a major backup that went over multiple rooms and into the walk-in closet. Anyway, I want to say that maintenance was very helpful yesterday. They came promptly when I said, hey, I have an urgent problem. They were right there, and they took care of things, pretty quickly. Housekeeping and laundry were also helpful, and taking care of the mess. And anyway, but I really hope that we can have some preventive, or, I had heard air bubbles in the line for months and had reported it several times. And, there wasn't any, the toilet flushed sometimes, but sometimes it didn't. And so, that's not acceptable. I've lived in a single family home for 50 years and never had this problem. So I hope it will be resolved.
Thank you. Tom?
Is the design work for the HVAC covering just the north wing, or is it going to include north and south?
Be the whole building.
I don't need that. Could you please, for those of us who've never figured out, give us in a nutshell, what's wrong with the HVAC in this building? What happened and how far back does it go?
I think nutshell, let's see, that's gonna be hard. I think it goes back to the development. I think that, like, they had a system that was a one-pipe system that was like, kind of, you had air conditioning or you had cooling, right? But it was just shut off. So people were generally dissatisfied. So about 3 to 5 years ago, we contracted with Johnson Controls, who's an HVAC provider, to put a new system in. They did that to the tune of $980,000 or something like that. They put in a system that all indications are it was designed poorly and has not functioned correctly. So again, we got people that have no adequate heating and cooling, mostly affecting the 3rd floor of that side of the apartment building. So, but everyone that's not in the most recent extension of the apartment building that goes on this side, eventually will start to feel the problems associated with the current system. That's about as nutshellish as I can get it. It's a lot there, so. Anything else I can help anyone with today? Yeah.
When you interviewed for this position, you talked about, some of your experience in implementing solar in some of your buildings. With energy prices going up and a lot of the dynamics changing, will you reconsider that now? Take another look at solar for Kalex? Thank you.
I mean, I wouldn't say I would not consider it. I don't think it's on a work plan currently. Let's put it that way. It might, you're right, with energy prices changing, it might change the calculus of the problem, but I don't know what evaluations have taken place on campus so far, but I'm not opposed to it. But I think it always depends on what for, so that's helpful.
I just wanted to ask about our residents and the wait list in Webster. And I know that we've got a full number of people who are waiting to get in, but where are they going to go?
So this is an interesting, I think, difference, let's just say, between other communities I've been and Kendall at Lexington. When we referred to a... Yeah, so the question was, what about the people who are on a wait list to be in Webster? We have a vacant room in Webster right now, and we're working with 2 people to discuss whether or not they're ready to move or not. And it's a process, so they have to be evaluated to make sure that they're appropriate for that level of care and this kind of thing. So we are doing that, and that's how it works. But to say there's a wait list, to me, are we saying that someone signed up 5 years ago and they're ahead of someone else to be in Webster? Because that's not the way it would really work. Webster is a resource that we use when people are medically need that support. It's not something you sign up for. Everybody in this room signed up for Webster when they signed their contract. We're just managing the caseload. If there's concern that you need to be in Webster, or you feel like you need a higher level of support that you're not getting, you have to let us know. But there are beds in Borden that you can have. So. But it's a process, it's not a sign-up sheet. If you think that's something you want to do, if you're ready to, like you're downsized, you're ready to move from your independent living unit into Webster, you just have to let us know. We'll start working on it. Any other questions?
I have a relatively minor question compared to all these that we've just heard. But you mentioned there's going to be a new breakfast service in your dining hall. I'm just curious, how many points will that breakfast?
Yeah, I think Jen would have to answer that question. I don't really know. But it's not going to be a robust breakfast option. I would probably, it's going to be like a breakfast sandwich and continental style thing with I think some upgraded coffee options. I don't know that it's fully developed yet, but I'm sure she'll be sharing that before it opens.
Correct me if I'm mistaken, but my understanding is that we are having trouble filling the landscape gardener position. I've also heard, because I'm not part of the inner workings, that the salary listed for it is, I know the number, but I was going to say quite low. I've heard it was 30,000 from several other people. So would you indicate whether or not, given the requirement of having a 2-year degree with an emphasis in landscaping, is the salary what's keeping people, or is it the degree requirement, or there are just no people?
Or all 3, right? So I would suggest, number one, I'm almost sure it's not 30,000. So the number it is, I don't have it on the top of my head. But yeah, we haven't really had interest or applicants. So we have had some success with some other positions using a firm. That's the name of the firm is Life Plan Recruiters. Life Plan Recruiters, they have a relatively modest fee for talent acquisition, and we did turn this position over to that firm on Monday. So it's just a matter of trying to, let's make a landscaping joke and say shake the bushes and get someone to come out. But so we're hoping to fill that, and I do think it's a strategically important position. So we are putting an emphasis on making sure that we're getting someone that has some landscape and plant knowledge and those sorts of things that can help us with some of the questions and issues that we have with our current landscaping program. So, thanks.
Adam, tell us a little bit about how you're getting more familiar with the community more broadly defined, getting to know Lexington and Rockbridge and Buena Vista and other executives, politicians, that kind of thing, getting kind of involved and integrated in the community.
Sure, thank you. So what my first, I don't know, probably the third, fourth, fifth month I was here, I spent a lot of time just setting up meetings and going and visiting with people. So that'd be the mayor, Cornerstone Bank, the city managers, the county managers, these sorts of folks. So those relationships have been good to the point where, you know, I've had a couple other interactions with the city management people in the time I've been here, but I don't have a Rolodex per se, but I have made some nice relationships. And as far as just kind of getting to know the area, that's mostly on Saturday and Sunday when we drive around, but we're quite happy here. And I think I've made some kind of superficial, strong introductions with many people in local government roles. So if that's helpful, but it's been good. People are extremely welcoming here. Not to bore you with a story, but I will tell you, if you remember, I came here from outside of Philadelphia. So I was driving down Main Street, you know, and I was past the theater there, and I was going up over the hill, and a truck turned the wrong way down that one-way street, and everyone just stopped and no one honked their horn, and I was expecting fisticuffs, but nothing happened. Place to be. I'm sorry.
Adam,
I get you the microphone.
It seems that our voluntary turnover staff rate is very high. Can you share any of the reasons that is?
We do exit interviews, so that there are you know, detailed explanations for each one. I would say it's high, so let's not try to hide from an issue here. We have a high turnover rate. I was hoping that when we got the SHRM data, that the current data would have been a little bit higher than it was like pre-pandemic. It is a little bit higher, but not much higher. I thought maybe this was the new job market. Like we should expect a 35–40% turnover rate normally. That doesn't seem to be the case. But remember, people leave for a variety of reasons. You know, we have people that leave you know, get a better job. We've had people that go back to college. We have had people that move out of town. But we also have people that might say, I got a job at a different facility for 25 cents more an hour and I'm leaving. So those are the types of people. We can't do anything about people moving. We can't do anything about people advancing their career. Like we want to support those things actually. But the ones that are leaving just because they're kind of, you know, running for 25 cents an hour, or the people that didn't really assimilate into the community very well. So one of the things that we really want to work on here is onboarding and mentorship, you know, as two tools to keep people here. I think if we can keep people here 12 months, we can keep them for 3 years. But the ones that we're losing, and like the example I gave, there's a housekeeping job that turned over one position. It's the floor tech position. It's probably turned over 4 times since I've been here. That's telling me that we have an engagement issue, or there's something wrong with the job. You know, there's something there that we need to investigate a little bit further. But why it's high, I don't know. I'm also being told it's just always been that way. So that is not, you know, I think we need to change that. If we go back a little bit further, there was a year, I think, during the pandemic where it was 72%. So, and I think something else they can think about as a group, but our HR department is constantly hiring people. There's no stop to it. So that recruitment thing, it's hard to do other HR-related tasks when you're constantly in this hiring mode. So the major focus of Clinton Madison is really always in hiring. It's not in retention, it's not in evaluation processes, it's not in some of these other critical HR programming things. Like we're not in there looking at salary ranges and being competitive. We're just constantly trying to get people in the door to fill positions. So it's not a position we want to be in. So we have to do a better job of recruiting and managing those people once they get in the door. That's how I think we stop it. So, or lower it. Let's just say. I don't think we're going to stop it.
I am still a little confused about what I think I've heard for the first time today.
Closer? Right here?
Going back to how I would qualify for Webster. Just a few years ago, I sat in an interview where I was signed up, and they even called me to see if I was ready for Webster. Now that, today, doesn't work, for I am confused as to why I even sat there in the first place. So what happens if you all of a sudden have a backup of people that need help right then? Is that when you are allowing us to go to Gordon until a room becomes available? What I'd like to suggest is that you or your staff write this up so that we understand clearly how we would qualify, because I think there's a lot of concern about, should I need it, where would I go?
That's fair.
I just want to thank you for doing these meetings. It's, I think, appreciated by everyone here at Kendall. The back and forth, the open conversation. Thank you very much, Adam.
Very welcome, and look forward to doing more of them. So I think this is what makes us stronger. So good communication and dialogue are so important, and I think this is a good venue to do that. Good, bad, or indifferent. You know, we got problems, we'll work on them together. Yes, ma'am. Wayne, all the way back up.
I'm coming, Anita.
On the webinar session, this is Wednesday, it must have been on Monday. Vassar Bird was not available because she was in the emergency room at that time with they thought, a broken rib. Has there been any update?
I've emailed with her since then, so, and she didn't indicate that she
So her
was in
fingers
the
aren't
hospital
broken.
or anything. I don't, you know, it's kind of a surprise they shared that much detail about what was going on. I don't know what was going on with her.
I
She's
just
fine.
wondered because several times during the webinar, there were comments that she was not there because she was in the emergency room with what they thought was a broken rib.
Okay.
And so some folks were pinch hitting who hadn't planned to be on the webinar.
I saw Amy was on there, but I suspect that she doesn't have a punctured lung because I was emailing with her later that night. So, good. All right, thank you, friends. Appreciate it. Have a great day.